Hey everyone, welcome to Ajay and Nathan Discuss Movies, a show in which we discuss movies both old and new. Today we have a new review out tonight. And what is that movie, Nathan?
Gladiator 2, directed by Ridley Scott.
Gladiator, directed by Ridley Scott. I don't know how we're going to title this video, but whatever it is.
Whatever
we'll just
works.
do Gladiator 2000 again.
It might as well be.
Might as well be. So what is this movie about, Nathan?
Yeah, Gladiator 2. It picks up, I believe, 16 years after the first Gladiator. It stars Paul Mescal as a man whose home is besieged by the Roman army, and he vows revenge against the Roman general, played by Pedro Pascal, for the death of his wife. He is taken by the Romans and forced to fight in the Colosseum, and there he meets a man, played by Denzel Washington, who seeks to help him with his quest of revenge and perhaps even his own personal play for power. There's swords and sandals and fighting and muscles and sweat and sand. Did I mention sand? Gladiator 2, yeah.
I hate sand. It's coarse and rough. It gets everywhere.
Gets everywhere, don't it?
Yeah.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
Anyways, how did you feel about this movie, Nathan?
I didn't like it. I'll just tell you that right now. I didn't enjoy it. It's not a bad movie. I had a very middling sort of opinion on it. I think there are elements of it that I find very interesting, very well done. I think all the battles, the big fights, those are all very engaging and fun to watch. I just think, for me, where it falls short is the actual story is not very interesting, even though it is a lot of it a retread of the first Gladiator. Like, I expected that to kind of happen. Like, I had an inkling that because it's a legacy sequel to something from like 20 years ago. I thought, if you're going to retread Gladiator, that's fine, whatever, but it feels as though it is trying to rush through the first Gladiator. It is 2.5 hours and feels like it is trying to speed run itself, and that just leaves little breathing room for anything to truly develop, and I feel as though there is, for me, an emotional distance with the movie.
All right. Yeah, I understand that perspective. Personally, for me, I enjoyed it.
Okay.
I liked the film. Yes, I understand it's essentially a rehash of the first Gladiator movie. And while that is a consistent criticism with the movie from other people, I personally thought, it's 24 years since the last movie. Yeah. Might as well just borrow some ideas and rehash those ideas. Mm-hmm. I thought the acting was great. I thought Pedro Pascal and Paul Mescal were good. Denzel was amazing. He's like easily the MVP of this entire movie. And in my personal opinion, he is the greatest American actor of all time.
Yeah.
In my opinion, he is.
Yeah. No, you're probably right. Honestly,
Yeah.
He's the best part of the entire movie.
He's great. And I love the fight sequences. You can definitely nitpick here and there. I felt like the last fight sequence, this is not really a spoiler because I'm just like kind of brushing over it, but It did feel a bit anticlimactic, I would say.
A little bit, yeah.
Having said all that, I was thoroughly entertained.
Are you not entertained?
Yeah. I was thoroughly entertained. It was a packed theater.
That's good.
At mine, and I only checked my phone once, so I feel like the pacing of the movie was not that big of an issue for me personally.
Okay.
I understand why certain other people would. Having said all that, I enjoy my time while watching this movie, and while this is by no means like one of the best movies of the year, I would say that for my first watch, it was good.
Okay. I will give you that. I would say, if I could point to one thing in this movie that I feel just does not at all work for me, if I can just name one thing, it is unfortunately Paul Mescal and his character. Not his performance. It's not terrible. I just don't think there's a lot to work with. The character just feels very bland, and he feels as though he's kind of just floating through the entire movie.
I do agree with that. It's kind of hard to take a character like seriously when you look at him and you're like, oh no, that's Jack Harlow. What are we doing here? Like, this guy looks like Jack Harlow. But I understand that.
This is like the first movie I've ever seen Paul Mescal in. I know he's done other stuff. He was in, is it After Sun?
After Sun, yeah.
And I hear he's amazing in that. I haven't seen it myself, but just basing him off of this movie alone, he was watching him was like watching a less interesting James McAvoy. That feels very mean, and I hate that sounds that way, but just he does not have really any charisma to carry the movie, and he is, of the two other leads in the film, Pedro Pascal and Denzel Washington, he really has the least to do and the least interesting story. His entire plot is the revenge narrative, and it feels so underbaked and so like basic. Like, the Romans killed my wife and I'm mad about it now.
Yeah.
Right up until I'm not, and I'm okay to get over it.
And like, there are certain questions you have when his wife dies, in which it's like, it's a battle. Like, of course, like there will be casualties on both sides. Like, weren't you expecting that your wife would die as well? Why are you acting so out of your element and emotional when your wife dies, when it's a war happening? What's the reason as to why you're looking at Pedro Pascal, of all people, as the person?
Yeah, it's weird how his revenge is focused solely on Pedro Pascal, because it's like, he didn't kill his wife.
The entire Roman army is behind that.
It's like there was an entire army. It was like, do you want to go after the guy who shot the arrow? I'm pretty sure he died like immediately after.
Yeah.
I will say the opening fight in Numidia, I think, is pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
Like a giant like arrow.
The set design's great.
Oh yeah,
The set design's amazing.
of course, yeah. The production design of the entire film is amazing. It's beautiful. The recreation of ancient Rome is gorgeous. The Colosseum, the costumes, the weapons, it's all so cool if you're one of those guys that thinks of the Roman army every 7 seconds of every day.
Yeah. But going back into the film, I feel as if like you mentioned about Paul Mescal's motivations, Lucius Decimus Meridius' motivations.
Yes.
But I feel like the motivations were unclear throughout the entire board of this movie.
Yeah.
You know?
He feels so like...
Even Denzel in a lot of ways, because I feel like we can get into spoilers now, right?
Yeah, do we want to get into spoilers? Yeah, we might as well.
Entering into a minute mark. Because there's a moment in like near like the third act of the movie where like Denzel just goes for the throne to be the king of Rome.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that was kind of out of left field, or do you think it fell in line with his character?
It didn't feel entirely out of left, because this whole thing, he has this speech to Connie Nielsen where he's like, I was a slave to Marcus Aurelius, and I have built myself up. I have put myself in this position of political power so that I might take power, because that is the only true truth in Rome. It is power and control. He's given the speech Hugh Grant gave in Heretic, just like, yes, the only religion I believe in is power, and that's his whole. So it didn't feel out of left field, but it did feel as though his entire like political stratagem of taking power, that it didn't feel as well developed. There's an entire movie you could have about a former Roman slave like entering the Senate and gaining political power. That's an entire movie in and of itself.
That would be a great like prequel.
Yeah, no, that would be a better sequel than the one that it is right now. If that was your angle, this guy gets a gladiator so he can disrupt the political senate of ancient Rome and install himself as emperor. That's great, but that's only like, as it is now, a third of the movie. And if it feels out of left field, I think that's because there's not enough time there.
Yeah, because for most of the movie, we're just looking at Denzel as like this Colonel Parker kind of role for Paul Mescal, where he's obviously kind of taking advantage of Paul Mescal. because he wants to win.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you see this kind of shift. I mean, I didn't think it was out of left field. I saw some other people say that it was like out of left field.
Okay.
I personally thought it was like really in line with the character.
Yeah, no, it completely works for him and his motivations.
Right. But I do feel as if the best parts of this movie were when like we saw like the human, heartfelt, genuine emotion between these characters. Like I feel like when Paul Mescal meets his mom, I feel like that was a moment where it was very like heartfelt.
Yeah,
and there are questions that I have with it, like why didn't his mother just tell the guards like, hey, that's my son, he's like the heir to the throne, like.
Yeah, that's when we get into the weeds of like this being a legacy sequel to the first Gladiator, because it is revealed, it's not immediate, but it is revealed about midway through the movie that he calls himself Hanu, but
Hanoi.
it's something
Hanoi
like that, and then it's revealed that he's the little boy from the first Gladiator. He is the Prince of Rome, and all I could think was, why couldn't this just be another like Gladiator? If you're gonna retread Gladiator, just let him be like his own character and not have every like 5 minutes someone come up to him and be like, you're so much like your father whose name was Maximus, he was the Gladiator. Every time they mentioned like his dad or Maximus, it was always your father whose name was Maximus, or Maximus, who was your father, in case you were fuzzy on that. He was from the first Gladiator. We made a little shrine for him with his sword and armor, because you're not a real character. You're a vessel for another Maximus, is just how the whole thing felt. Like, he can't just be his own character with his own motivations. He has got to be the child of Maximus who's come back to finish the job.
It felt like a movie that was trying to gear up for a sequel.
Yeah, I briefly looked at the Wikipedia for this just before we did this, just so I could like remind myself of the events, and I saw that they wanted to develop a Gladiator 3. Why?
I mean, I'm down for it. I'm down for it. I'm down to hear No Church in the Wild in the trailer. Going back in the movie. Getting back. We kind of sidetracked.
Yeah.
But overall, I thought, how did you feel about the pacing?
The pacing, God, again, I feel as though the movie, it felt rushed. It's 2.5 hours long. It just felt as though a lot of scenes did not give themselves the time to breathe. I think I kind of scrubbed through the first Gladiator the other night just to prepare myself, just to get some of that rattling around in my brain. And I think the indicator that this movie was gonna be a little bit wonky was that opening battle where we see Paul Mescal and his wife. They kiss once. She doesn't say a single word the entire time she's on screen, and then she dies immediately, and then we're thrust into his revenge narrative. In the first Gladiator, we take like a good 30 to 40 minutes to like build up Maximus before he is stripped of everything and his revenge narrative starts. It takes its time to like get us like with this character, with his journey. In Gladiator 2, again, it just feels like it's rushing to hit all those beats from the previous film and then also fit in Denzel Washington's plot as a political animal, and then Pedro Pascal's plot as a disillusioned general, and then we also have the two emperors who are just kind of shitbirds, just like being crazy. It feels
Thing 1 and Thing 2, basically.
Thing 1 and Thing 2, yeah, and it just feels too crammed when all we need is that strong emotional hook of a man in bondage taking revenge against his oppressors.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And I feel as if like there were times in the movie where there were like fight scenes that I was just like, how is this possible? Like when they were like at the Colosseum and they were on like a ship with water. I'm like, this is not possible. Like, did we just like jump from Gladiator to Star Wars in terms of like what's the theory of what's about to occur.
To be fair, I believe it is historically accurate that one of the battles in the Roman Colosseums was they filled it with water and just had naval combat, which is cool. But at the same time, like, you see sharks in the water, you're just like, how'd they get the sharks in there? Did they just leave them in the Colosseum flopping around, and then, like, they're filling in the water? Just like, we don't want them to suffocate yet. Get the water in. It's weird. Just, like, tiny little things that where it's just like, that's a little silly. But I can accept that, because that's where most of the fun of the movie are these big Colosseum battles. That is essentially like where the meat is of everything, because those battles are so fun, they're so well choreographed, they're so cool. I will say one blight though is the very first like Colosseum fight with where he's fighting the baboons.
Yeah,
those baboons looked
CGI'd
terrible.
They were horrendous.
They looked awful. And there's this weird editing moment where he is fighting the baboon and he like grabs it with his chains and he's like about to choke it out, and then it cuts away from that, and then it cuts back and he's standing having defeated the baboon. It's like, I feel like we cut out like 5 seconds. We never actually saw him kill the baboon, and so it makes me think that the baboon was just like, tap out. The referee finished. Like, I don't know, just like there was a weird like little editing thing there, which again leads me back to, it feels as though the movie does not give some scenes enough time to really breathe.
Yeah, and then by the end of the film, when he defeats Denzel, spoiler alert, the army's just like, look, and they just like don't do anything about it. They're like, I guess we just gotta go home now, like spend time with the missus and like the children and not fight this war anymore.
He gives like a half speech, just like, my father had a dream of Rome. I'm just like, this guy's really gonna give the I have a dream speech right now? For real? Yeah. And then like we see like the Praetorian like general who has been corrupt as all hell throughout the entire movie. He's like, put your swords down, men. Just like, what? You of all people who like killed your own general and like completely was at the beck and call of these corrupt politicians. You're just like, this guy I've never seen before is speaking to my soul. Perhaps war is not the way. I'm like, what? What do you mean? You literally were firing at civilians, my guy. Now you're having a change of heart because he chopped off Denzel Washington's arm?
It felt like a less well-developed version of the original Gladiator.
Yeah.
With a little bit of like Dune in there, because it does feel like Lucius Meridius Decimus was used as like this messianic figure, just like Paul Atreides was.
Oh my god, you're kind of right with the weird Dune kind of pull. It does lightly feel like
there's a little weird vibe between the mother and the son as well.
A little bit, a lot of sand. There's Denzel's push to become emperor feels like the Harkonnens, and that's a weirdly accurate pull. No, you're right. Yeah, it's weird because I do like some of the ideas and some of the plot points that they do build up, like Denzel Washington, like slowly attempting to gain power is really cool. I really liked Pedro Pascal as a disillusioned Roman general who wants to dethrone the emperors, because he's like, they just keep sending me to war and I don't want to do war anymore. I want to help the people of Rome. It's like, I was thinking the entire movie, like, why not just have Pedro Pascal as your gladiator?
That's very true.
It would be like that's
a great idea.
It would be a more like on the nose like retread, because in the first movie, Russell Crowe's a Roman general who is betrayed. This movie, Pedro Pascal is a Roman general who is betrayed, but at least like you have an incredibly charismatic lead. You have a nice like political hook with it. It feels more right. If you're gonna just redo Gladiator 1 again, like, really just go for it. Like, might as well. Like, put a more charismatic and interesting lead character at the forefront of it.
Having said all that, I do like Paul Mescal. I think he's a good actor. I don't think
He's
that
not
this
bad.
film really showcased his talents because
Yeah.
he's not really given a lot to work with.
That's what I felt too. I don't think he was bad in it. I just think just like this character had really nothing to do.
Yeah.
Like his whole goal is to take revenge against Pedro Pascal, but then his mom shows up and he's like, "That's my boyfriend. Please don't kill him." And then in the arena, Pedro Pascal is like, "I'm not going to kill you because your mom is my wife, and also I hear your dad was a cool guy." And then Paul Mescal is just like, "I will not kill this man." Like, why? You've
You already killed his wife.
Up
No,
until
not really,
this
but-
point, you've been really gunning to kill Pedro Pascal, but because, I don't know, I imagine you just looked Pedro Pascal in the eyes, just like, oh man, I really do like The Mandalorian.
I feel like Pedro Pascal was good. Denzel was good. Paul was good as well.
Yeah.
I just felt as if he wasn't given that much to work with.
He really wasn't, which
Having-
is a shame.
Having said all that, I still enjoyed the movie.
Yeah.
I still thought it was a fun watch. I mean, we had to watch some clunkers in the past few months.
This is not at all the worst movie we've seen this year.
Yeah.
This is just, it's kind of midway,
Yeah.
I would say.
It's it's a fair movie. It's a fine movie. I think that there are better works that Ridley Scott has released
Yeah.
in his life as opposed to this
easily.
movie. The original Gladiator was really good. Blade Runner,
Alien.
The
Yeah.
Last Duel, I loved.
Last Duel's a good movie.
Last Duel was a great movie.
It's a good movie.
I don't know. I feel like at this point in time, if we're going to have a Gladiator movie, it's got to be something unique and original.
Yeah.
And I don't think it should be necessarily a rehash of the original.
Yeah, and even if you are just going to follow the plot of the original, like, beat for beat, like, really, like, dedicate yourself to doing that. Don't just throw in a bunch of, like, half-baked ideas. The word I would use to describe this movie is doughy. It's doughy and undercooked. And hey, you know what? To be fair, some people like an undercooked cookie.
Yeah.
Some people like cookie dough, and that's fine. I also like some doughy cookie dough. That's okay. But it's just like, for what you would want from this director, from this sequel, it doesn't deliver everything it possibly could.
It's a movie where you feel as if you have to stay for a post-credit scene.
I'd like you to join the Centurion Initiative.
Yeah. And maybe that's kind of like a diss on the movie. It's not, but by the end of the movie, I'm like, I feel like I gotta stay for a post-credit scene.
Like it ends with him in the Coliseum, like, "Father, speak to me," like you're gonna see Russell Crowe as a Force ghost.
He's just in the gray, and like the sea of gray, just like near like the ground, and he's just like peering into the ground, and I'm just like, should I just stay? Like,
It's like,
for the
what's
post-credit? Like, what's the point?
Lucius will return in Gladiator Civil War.
Yeah. How was your theater experience watching the movie?
My theater experience, it was okay. It was fine. My theater was a little less than packed. There were a couple of people, but I don't know. The movie wasn't like too like, whoa, to where there were like big like reactions in my audience. At one point, I just like saw the two people in front of me just like do like just like arm stretches, because obviously it's a long movie, and I could tell just like they were just like, is it over yet?
Yeah.
Are we done?
My theater was packed.
Yeah.
I watched it opening weekend, and it was just very packed.
Very nice.
And no one reacted to anything.
Oh.
Even the jokes that were in the movie, I'm like, all right, guys, like we should be laughing. You know, that's a funny joke. More wine, please. That's a funny joke.
People did laugh when that one emperor decided to nominate his pet monkey as a consul.
Oh, that was hilarious.
It's like, Consul Citizen Barnabas. And it's just like the little monkey eating just like treats on the seats.
Yeah.
Hail Barnabas.
I mean, honestly, there's a little megalopolis in here. There's a little megalop, especially with that third act with the monkey and all that. There's a little megalopolis.
Lucius, what do you think of this boner I got?
It's like it's bow and arrow You're dead. Aubrey Plaza's dead. Hey.
I mean, I did think of Megalopolis when Connie Nielsen, like when she's strapped to the pole and just like gets hit with the arrow. My brain immediately flashed to Megalopolis.
Yeah.
Just like it's exactly like how Aubrey Plaza died.
Yeah. So yeah, it's getting all of its direct inspiration from other great movies. You know?
Exactly. Not just
Ridley Scott had to sell shares of his winery.
Oh no, not Ridley Scott's winery. Ridley Scott would open a winery without knowing how to make wine, and then he'd complain to everyone that it tasted terrible. Just like, you don't know what real wine tastes like. I've been making wine all my life. No one cares what it tastes like. You just squeeze the grapes.
That's a great Ridley Scott impression.
I'm making grape juice because he's just angry and thinks everyone else is wrong.
Yeah. He is a character.
He's an interesting, angry old man.
He's a character that we've grown to appreciate and love.
Sure.
Yeah. And other than that, I think that's it for us.
I think that's about it for us. Wrapping up our thoughts.
Yeah. Overall, it was a fun movie if you never watched the first one. I enjoyed it. Having said all that, I can understand why other people didn't enjoy it. And yeah, it was just too woke. It was too woke.
Oh,
it was
no.
one black person's way too many in
no.
a movie. No, overall, I thought Denzel Washington was the best part of this entire movie.
Easily.
The set design was great. The costume design was great.
Oh.
You got to give props to the costume department for that. The acting was great. Again, I just felt like the stories weren't that fleshed out. I felt as if it would have been a little bit better if we had a little bit more development with the characters and with their stories. Would that have made this film a little bit more of a longer runtime? Maybe, but it would have been a little bit better of a movie.
Yeah, no, that's basically, I share the same sentiments. I think it's entertaining. There's a lot of fun. The action is really great. There are some good standout performances, but overall, it does feel a bit undercooked. Feels as though they threw a lot of ideas for a Gladiator sequel in there and just decided, we'll roll with all of these. Whatever. Yeah. But it's not terrible by any means. There's still a lot of fun to be had if you're looking for a big ol' historical epic in the movie theaters with swords and rhinos and battles.
Yeah. And those are our thoughts on the movie.
Those are our thoughts on Gladiator 2.
Check out our channel for more reviews.
We're this close to 500 subscribers.
We're this close to 500.
500 of you want to watch us, and although that terrifies me, thank you.
Thank you for making Cattle like our second most reviewed review on the entire channel. That's crazy. I just looked at the reviews. I'm like, that's the review? But hey, people like Cattle Lake. They like Cattle Lake.
I was like half asleep that day. Just like, wow, this guy looks really tired. Subscribe,
yeah. Overall, this movie was well worth it. It was well worth seeing a mice in my theater.
Oh,
just running around, causing havoc.
That's why the theater was so packed. It was just rats.
Yeah, just rats, yeah. All right. That's it for us. Bye.